John Wayne stood on the Rio Bravo set in old Tucson, Arizona, watching Dean Martin rehearse a drunk scene in the summer heat of 1958, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Howard Hawks had just made the biggest casting mistake of either of their careers. Wait, because what happened when the cameras rolled 48 hours later would completely change Wayne's understanding of what it meant to be an actor, and the words that came out of his own mouth in that moment would surprise him more than anything Dean did. The problem started 3 months earlier when Hawks called Wayne about the project. Rio Bravo, a Western. Wayne as the sheriff. Simple enough. Then Hawks mentioned the supporting cast. I'm thinking Dean Martin for Dude. Wayne had been holding a glass of whiskey. He set it down carefully. Dean Martin, the singer. He's more than that, Duke. He just split from Jerry Lewis. He's looking to prove himself. I think he's got something. Wayne didn't say what he was thinking. That Dean Martin was a crooner who told jokes and made records. That putting him in a Western alongside Walter Brennan and a teenage heartthrob named Ricky Nelson sounded like a recipe for disaster. That the role of Dude, a broken-down drunk trying to earn back his dignity, required real acting, not charm and a nice voice. But Hawks had never steered him wrong. Red River, The Big Sky, both had worked because Hawks knew what he was doing. So Wayne said yes, and then spent the next 3 months wondering if this would be the one that didn't work. Look at what just happened there, because Wayne's agreement wasn't confidence, it was trust. Trust that Hawks saw something Wayne didn't, and that trust would be tested in ways Wayne couldn't predict. 3 months of doubt, 3 months of wondering if he'd just signed on to a project that would damage both their reputations. The first day Dean showed up on set, Wayne sized him up. Dean looked the part, at least. Lean, good face, moved well. But there was something in his eyes that Wayne recognized. Fear, the kind of fear that came from knowing you were in over your head and hoping nobody else noticed. They shook hands. Wayne kept it professional. Dean, good to have you. Thanks for taking a chance on me, Duke. Wayne didn't say. I didn't take the chance. Hawks did. He just nodded and watched Dean walk away toward his trailer. Then he turned to Hawks. He ready for this? Hawks smiled. We'll find out tomorrow. One question, one answer, one night, until Wayne would know if his trust had been misplaced. Notice this, because Wayne wasn't being cruel. He'd seen plenty of actors fail because they thought movie acting was easy, thought presence was enough, thought charisma could carry a scene. But Dude wasn't a charming character. Dude was pathetic, humiliated, a man whose hands shook when he tried to hold a gun. And if Dean couldn't sell that, the entire movie would collapse around him. That night, Wayne couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the opening scene. Dude walks into a saloon, sees a coin in a spittoon, reaches for it, gets humiliated. No dialogue, just action, just shame. It was the hardest kind of scene to pull off, pure emotion with nothing to hide behind. And they were shooting it first thing in the morning with a guy who'd never done serious drama in his life. Wayne had worked with enough bad actors to know what happened when someone couldn't deliver. The whole production ground to a halt, morale tanked, and Wayne would spend the next 6 weeks trying to compensate for someone else's weakness. He'd done it before. He didn't want to do it again. The Arizona night was cold. Wayne stood on his hotel balcony smoking a cigarette, watching the lights of old Tucson flicker in the distance. The smell of desert sage drifted up from the valley below. Somewhere out there, Dean Martin was probably pacing his own room, running lines that didn't exist, trying to figure out how to play shame without words. 6 a.m. Wayne was already in costume when he arrived on set. Leather jacket, jeans, gun belt, the uniform he'd worn in a dozen Westerns. He knew how to move in it, knew how to stand, knew how to make every gesture count. It was second nature by now. Dean showed up. 15 minutes later, he looked different. The costume helped. Weathered vest, dusty pants, battered hat. But it was more than that. Something about the way he moved, slower, more careful. Like every step required thought. Hawks gathered the crew. All right, here's the setup. Dude walks in. He's broke. Desperate. Sees a coin in the spittoon. Reaches for it. Joe kicks it away. Dude falls. Wayne steps in. No dialogue. Dean, you ready? Dean nodded, but Wayne saw his hands, saw the slight tremor, and he thought, here we go. This is where it falls apart. We're rolling in 20 minutes. 20 minutes until Wayne's doubts would either be confirmed or shattered. 1,200 seconds. Wayne had faced down outlaws in 100 movies, but this moment, watching a crooner prepare to play broken, felt more unpredictable than any gunfight he'd ever filmed. Wayne stood off to the side, watching Dean, watching him close his eyes, watching him take deep breaths, watching him go somewhere internal that Wayne couldn't see. And for the first time, Wayne thought, maybe he's actually trying. Hawks gave the signal. 10 minutes. The crew finalized the lighting. Wayne checked his gun belt, a habit from years of westerns. Dean stood perfectly still, eyes still closed, lips moving slightly like he was talking to himself. 5 minutes. Hawks positioned the cameras. Wayne glanced at Walter Brennan, who raised an eyebrow. They'd both seen actors freeze before their first take. Both wondered if Dean would be one of them. 2 minutes. The set went silent. Even the crew stopped moving. Everyone knew this was the moment. If Dean couldn't deliver, they'd spend the next 6 weeks salvaging a broken film. Hawks called action. Dean walked. And it wasn't Dean Martin walking. It was someone else. Someone broken. Every step deliberate. Every movement measured. Eyes locked on that spittoon like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. He crouched, reached out, and just before his fingers touched the coin, Claude Akins kicked it away. Dean fell to his knees, and the look on his face. Wayne had seen that look before, on real people, on men who'd lost everything, and were trying to hold on to one last shred of dignity. It wasn't acting. It was something deeper. Wayne stepped forward in character, pulled Dude up, and the scene continued. But Wayne barely registered what he was doing. He was too busy processing what he'd just witnessed. Dean Martin, the crooner, the Rat Pack guy, had just delivered something real. Hawks called cut. The set went silent. Wayne stood there, still holding Dean's arm, staring at him. Dean looked up, waiting for notes, waiting for criticism, waiting for someone to tell him it wasn't good enough. And Wayne heard himself say it. Dean, I didn't know you had this in you. Wait, because those words weren't planned. Wayne didn't do compliments on set. He did his job. He expected others to do theirs. But what he'd just seen wasn't just competence, it was transformation. And Wayne, who'd been acting for 30 years, recognized it immediately. Dean managed a small smile. Neither did I, Duke. Hawks walked over. That's the take. We're moving on. And just like that, Wayne's entire perception shifted. Dean wasn't a liability. He was an asset. Maybe even the best thing in the movie. Over the next 6 weeks, Wayne watched Dean work. Really work. Between takes, Wayne would pull him aside, not to criticize, to refine. When you pick up that glass, let your hand shake a little. Make us see you trying to control it. Dean would nod, adjust, and the next take would be better. It reminded Wayne of working with Montgomery Clift on Red River. That same hunger to get it right. That same willingness to be vulnerable. Clift had been a method actor, trained in New York, all technique and preparation. Dean didn't have that background, but he had something else, instinct, and he was smart enough to trust it. Walter Brennan, who'd been in the business longer than anyone, pulled Wayne aside after one scene. That boy's making us all look good. Where'd Hawks find him? Wayne smiled. Rat Pack. No kidding. Hell, maybe I should start singing. The crew started treating Dean differently too. not as a singer playing dress-up, but as a real actor. Wayne noticed the shift. The way the camera operators framed Dean's scenes with more care. The way Hawks let Dean's takes breathe instead of rushing through them. The way even the grips stopped what they were doing to watch when Dean was working. Remember something here, because what Wayne was experiencing wasn't just professional respect, it was something deeper. He'd spent 3 months worried about carrying a weak actor. Now he was watching a transformation happen in real time, and it was changing how Wayne thought about his own work. The turning point came during the rifle scene. Sheriff Chance hands Dude a rifle, watches to see if his hands are steady. In the script, it was a test. Dude passes. Simple. But when they shot it, Dean's hands trembled. Just slightly. And Wayne, who wasn't supposed to react, felt something shift in his chest, because that trembling wasn't in the script. That was Dean making a choice, showing Dude's vulnerability, making the moment real. Wayne held his reaction, kept his face neutral, let the camera stay on Dean's struggle, and when Dean finally steadied his hands, Wayne nodded. Once, that's all the scene needed. Hawks didn't call cut immediately. He let it breathe. Then that's it. That's the whole character right there. Wayne walked over to Dean after. Where'd you learn to do that? Dean looked surprised. Do what? That thing with your hands. That wasn't in the script. I figured Dude would be trying so hard to look normal that it'd make him more nervous. So I let my hands shake. Wayne studied him. Who taught you that? Dean hesitated. I got some advice. Before we started shooting. From who? Marlon Brando. Wayne blinked. Brando. The method actor. The guy everyone said was going to change Hollywood. Wayne had never worked with him, never particularly wanted to, but now he understood. Dean had gone to Brando for help, had admitted he didn't know what he was doing, had asked for guidance, and Brando had given him something that worked. Listen carefully now, because this is where Wayne's own understanding shifted. He'd always thought acting was about presence, about confidence, about walking onto a set, and knowing exactly who you were and what you brought. But Dean had done the opposite. He'd admitted weakness, asked for help, done the work, and it had made him better than if he'd tried to fake his way through. Stop for a second and think about what that meant for Wayne, because he'd built a career on being the guy who showed up prepared, who knew his character inside and out, who never needed direction. But Dean had shown him another path, that asking for help wasn't weakness, that vulnerability could be strength, that even legends had room to grow. 6 weeks later, filming wrapped. Wayne and Dean stood in the parking lot, dusty and exhausted. The Arizona sun was setting behind them, turning the sky orange and purple. The air had cooled, and Wayne could hear coyotes starting their evening calls in the hills. You did good, Dean. Dean smiled. Coming from you, that means everything. Wayne nodded. You ever want to do another Western, you call me. You serious? I don't say things I don't mean. They shook hands, and Wayne meant it, because Dean Martin had taught him something he hadn't expected to learn. That being willing to be vulnerable, to admit you don't know something, to ask for help, that wasn't weakness, that was strength. Notice something important here, because what happened on that set wasn't just about one actor learning his craft. It was about another actor, someone who'd been doing this for decades, recognizing that there were still things to learn. Wayne had been the star, the icon, the guy everyone looked up to, but Dean had reminded him that even legends could be surprised. Rio Bravo premiered in March 1959. 4 months of waiting to see if it worked. 4 months of wondering if Hawks had been right. Wayne sat in the theater next to Hawks, watching the screen. 3 hours until they'd know if audiences bought what they'd built. And when Dean's opening scene played, the spittoon, the fall, the shame, Wayne felt something unexpected. Pride, not in himself, in Dean, in what they'd built together. The reviews came out the next day, and they weren't just good, they were revelatory. Dean Martin delivers a performance of surprising depth. The heart of Rio Bravo belongs to Martin's dude. Wayne read them and smiled. He'd been wrong about Dean. Hawks had been right, and Wayne was man enough to admit it. 6 years later, Wayne worked with Dean again, the sons of Katie Elder. By then, Wayne had just come through lung cancer surgery. 1 lung gone, 2 ribs removed, and there was Dean showing up every day, making sure Wayne had what he needed, making sure he didn't overextend himself, returning the mentorship Wayne had given him on Rio Bravo. That's when Wayne understood the full picture. What had started as professional respect had become real friendship, built on mutual understanding, on the knowledge that they'd both been willing to be vulnerable, to help each other, to make each other better. Listen to what happened next, because this is where the story becomes something more than just 2 actors on a set. It becomes a testament to what happens when ego takes a back seat to craft, when assumptions get challenged, when one person's courage to be vulnerable inspires another person's courage to grow. Wayne never forgot Rio Bravo, never forgot watching Dean fall to his knees in that opening scene and thinking, I was wrong, he's got it. Years later, when someone asked Wayne about working with Dean, he didn't talk about the Rat Pack or the singing or the comedy. He talked about the work. Dean surprised a lot of people, Wayne said, including me. He came prepared, he came serious, and he delivered. That's all that matters in this business. But Wayne left out one detail. The part where Dean's transformation had changed Wayne's own approach, had reminded him that even after 30 years in the business, there were still lessons to learn, still ways to grow, still moments where someone you underestimated could teach you something about your own craft. If you enjoyed spending this time here, I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing. A simple like also helps more than you'd think. And if you want to hear what happened when Wayne walked onto the set of The Sons of Katie Elder just 4 months after cancer surgery and insisted on doing his own stunts, despite having only 1 lung, tell me in the comments.